The girl who fell in the snow. The wind screamed outside the tent like a wild animal. The snow never stopped falling on this frozen alien planet. It was night again. But on this planet, night lasted for weeks. Jake, a human soldier, sat near his small heater. His outpost was small, just a tent, a food crate, and a comms unit that had not worked in days. He was alone. The other soldiers had left after the mission ended. Jake stayed behind to guard the site, but no one came. No one sent a message. It had been 47 days. He was used to silence until tonight. A strange sound came from outside the tent. Not the wind, not the snow. A thump, a soft cry. Jake grabbed his laser knife and moved to the entrance. "Who's there?" "Ha!" he shouted. No answer. Only the wind again. He opened the flap, and there lying in the snow was a girl. A glowing girl. She looked almost human, but her skin was too pale, with a faint blue light under it. Her hair was white like the snow, her eyes closed. She wore no shoes. Her thin clothes were ripped. Her body trembled. Jake stepped out and grabbed her. She was ice cold. Almost dead. He pulled her inside, placed her near the heater, and wrapped a blanket around her. Her lips were purple. Her breathing was shallow. Jake had seen aliens before, but never one like this. "Can you hear me?" he asked. "Are you hurt?" She opened her eyes, bright blue, glowing. She stared at him, confused. She spoke something in a soft, musical language he didn't understand. Jake gave her a water bottle. She sipped it slowly. Then she touched the heater, her fingers shaking, and looked at him. She pointed at herself, then made a gesture like hugging the heater. Jake nodded. "You're cold. I get it." He gave her another blanket. She pulled it tight and sat closer to the heat. Then she looked at him again, slowly moved her hand toward his chest. Jake froze. She touched his shirt. Just for a second. Suddenly, a flash of light burst in his mind. He saw a huge creature with glowing eyes. He saw planets burning. He saw the girl, running, hiding, bleeding. Then it was gone. He gasped. "What the hell?" The girl pulled her hand away. She looked scared now. She pointed outside. Then she made a motion: claws, fangs, teeth. Jake realized what she meant. "You're running from something." She nodded. He turned off the light and peeked. Outside the tent, darkness, snow, wind. Then he saw it, a shadow far away, tall, moving slow. Jake's heart pounded. He closed the flap, locked it, and sat down again. The girl was breathing faster, her eyes full of fear. Jake gave her some dried food. She sniffed it, then took a bite. Her eyes lit up. She was starving. For a while, they sat in silence. Then she picked up a stick from the floor and began to draw. On the tent's canvas wall, she drew a large beast with 4 legs and spikes. She drew a human standing in front of it. The human had a glowing object in his hand. A weapon. Jake's eyes widened. "Is that me?" She nodded. Slowly Jake laughed. Nervously. "No way. I'm just a guard. I fix radios and eat cold beans." But she pointed at the drawing again. Serious. Then she did something strange. She reached into her clothes and pulled out a small silver piece of metal. It glowed faintly. She placed it in Jake's hand. The moment it touched him, it stuck to his palm like a magnet. "Hey, what is this?" It melted into his skin. Jake screamed. His hand burned, but only for a second. Then the pain vanished. He looked at his palm. Nothing there now, just skin. "What did you do to me?" The girl looked at him with sadness. Then she said one word. Only one. "Chosen." Jake stared at her. "What do you mean, chosen?" She didn't answer. She just leaned back, eyes closing. Exhausted, outside the wind howled again. Jake looked at the wall drawing. The beast. the human with the weapon. His hands still tingled. He didn't know what was coming next. But one thing was clear. This girl didn't just want to warm up in his tent. She brought something with her, and now he was part of it. Her eyes were not just blue, they were a warning. Jake woke up gasping for air. His heart was racing. His body was covered in sweat, even though the tent was freezing. He had dreamed of fire, screaming, and a monster with glowing red eyes. But when he sat up, he realized something was wrong. The alien girl was gone. The blanket lay empty beside. The heater, the water bottle, was tipped over. The silver stick she gave him, still gone. His palms still tingled. Where did she go? He whispered. Jake stood and quickly unzipped the tent flap. At first, he saw only snow and white hills. The sky was dark and cloudy. Cold wind bit his face. But then he saw them. Footprints. Tiny bare footprints, glowing faint blue. They led away from the tent. He followed them. They went around a snow hill, down a slope, and stopped near a frozen lake. Then he saw something that made his blood turn to ice. The girl's footprints were not alone. Next to them, deep claw marks, wide, heavy. Something had been chasing her. Jake slowly stepped forward, knife in hand. He followed the tracks into a small cave near the edge of the rocks. The glow of the footprints stopped at the cave mouth. He entered, heart pounding. "Hey, are you in here?" He called softly, no answer. Then, from the shadows, a soft glow. The girl sat in the corner, hugging her knees. Her body shook. There was a thin cut on her cheek, and blue blood dripped onto the ground. Jake rushed over. "You're hurt." She looked up at him, her glowing blue eyes full of fear. And something else. A warning. She grabbed his hand and pointed outside the cave, then made the claw motion again. She was trembling badly. "It followed you, didn't it?" She nodded. Jake helped her stand. "We need to get back to the tent, now." As they stepped outside, the wind grew stronger. Snow fell faster. Jake carried her on his back most of the way. She was weak. But something followed them. He felt it. Like heavy eyes, watching, breathing. Back inside the tent, Jake wrapped her in more blankets and gave her food. Then she surprised him. She reached for the stick. Again, but it was gone. Instead, she took Jake's hand and touched the spot on his palm where it had vanished. And suddenly, the tent around them melted away. Not really. But in his mind, he saw it. He stood on a strange battlefield under red skies. Ships burned in. The air, creatures ran across the ground, screaming, howling, hunting. Then he saw Hertha, alien girl, standing in a cage, crying, and behind Hertha, monster, tall as a building, claws like swords, eyes like lava. Then the vision was gone. Jake blinked. He was back in the tent. He pulled his hand away. "What was that? What did you show me?" The girl spoke in her soft alien tongue. She pointed at his chest, then at the wall of the tent. Jake gave her a pen. She drew again. This time, she drew a symbol, a circle with 3 points. Then she pointed at herself, and then at Jake. He frowned. "This is a connection. You and me." She nodded. Then she drew again. A large planet with rings, a moon, and then a black ship. A prison. She was a prisoner, and she escaped. She pointed at the monster again and drew chains around it. Jake understood. That thing wasn't just a hunter. It was her jailer. "Why did you come to me?" he asked. "Why me?" She looked at him. Her glowing blue eyes were no longer just beautiful. They were sharp, ancient, full of meaning. She said one word. "Protector." Jake shook his head. "No, I'm not a protector. I'm just a comms guy. I can't even fix my radio." But she smiled sadly. Then she pressed her hand to his heart. And that's when the tent lights flickered. The heater shut off. Something heavy moved outside. Jake grabbed his knife again. The girl sat up, alert. They both heard it, a low growl, like metal. Grinding on bones, Jake turned off the lights. He peeked through the flap. At the edge of the snowy field a shape stood. Massive, breathing steam. Watching the tent, it didn't come closer. Not yet. It was waiting. Jake stepped back inside. The girl clutched his arm tightly. He looked down. At her glowing eyes again. They weren't just blue. They were a signal. A map. A warning. He realized something. She hadn't chosen him because he was strong. She had chosen him because she had seen this moment coming. And now, so had he. They hunted her across the stars now. She brought them here. The cold was deeper now. Even the snowflakes seemed heavier, slower, like the planet was holding its breath. Jake didn't sleep that night. Neither did the alien girl. She stayed close to the heater, her eyes wide open. She didn't speak. She just watched the tent wall where she had drawn the monster, the human, and the strange symbols. Outside, something moved too big to be wind. Too slow to be harmless. Jake sat with a knife in one hand and a heater pipe in the other. That's all he had. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew why it was coming. The girl? She had brought it, and he hadn't said a word. Hours earlier, before night swallowed the sky again, Jake had climbed the nearby hill to fix his long-range comms unit. He knew it wouldn't work. He hadn't in weeks, but he had to try. From the top of the hill, he could see everything: the tent, the frozen lake, the mountain shadows in the distance. That's when he saw them. The ships. 3 black dots in the sky. Small, silent, but moving too fast. They weren't human ships. They were coming straight toward the planet. Jake ran back down, heart pounding. When he reached the tent, he found the girl holding the tent flap open, staring into the sky. She had seen them too. He stepped inside. "They're coming for you, aren't they?" She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up the pen again and drew a shape on the canvas wall. A tall tower surrounded by chains. She pointed at the tower. Then at herself. Jake guessed, "You escaped from there?" She nodded. He frowned. "But why did they lock you up? You're not dangerous." She hesitated, then drew something new. Herself, but glowing like a star. Then she drew other creatures, bowing to her. She looked at Jake carefully, then placed his hand on the drawing. Suddenly, a new vision exploded in his mind. He saw her on a throne, her body pulsing with power, surrounded by fire. Ships burned in the sky. Creatures knelt on the ground. She had power, too much power. Then he saw her in chains, trapped, controlled. The jailers were not saving the galaxy. They were hiding her from it. Jake pulled away. They weren't trying to protect others from you. They were trying to stop you from becoming something great. She nodded, eyes sad. Jake sat down, stunned. "They're afraid of you." She nodded again, then said a single word. "Hybrid." Stared. "What?" She pointed at him, then at herself, then tapped the drawing of the throne. Jake realized what she meant. "You're not just alien anymore." She pointed at his chest. "You used my DNA when you touched me." That silver stick, it hadn't been a gift. It had been a key. She had mixed their biology. Together, they were becoming something new. That night, the girl suddenly stood and opened the tent flap again. "Wait, what are you doing?" She stepped outside into the snow. Barefoot, Jake followed, quickly pulling on his jacket. She walked slowly, eyes fixed on the forest at the edge of the hill. Jake, Squinted. He saw them, eyes glowing red. Dozens of them between the trees in the dark. They watched, not beasts, not humans, Hunters. They wore black armor, tall and thin, with long limbs and glowing weapons on their backs. Jake reached for his knife. The girl held up a hand. No. Not yet. She stepped forward and placed her hand on the snow. Suddenly, its ground lit up, blue lines spreading out like roots. Forming a glowing pattern, the hunters stopped. They didn't come closer. They were afraid. Jake whispered, "What is that?" The girl didn't answer. But he felt it, something deep under the snow had awakened. The light came from ancient tech, hidden under the ice for who knows how long. And it responded to her no. It responded to both of them. Back in the tent, Jake sat in silence while the girl rested. He looked at his hand again. The skin was normal. But when he concentrated, he could feel a pulse, like a second heartbeat. He was changing. The girl had changed him. Not just his body, but his purpose. He had been a forgotten guard, a quiet soldier sent to freeze on a dead planet. Now, he was something more. She had chosen him. But with her choice, she had brought the hunters, and they would not stop. Not now. As snow fell again, Jake stood at the entrance of the tent, knife in hand, heart full of questions. He looked back at the girl, sleeping quietly under the blankets. Her face was calm, but her eyes, when she opened them, again would not be just blue. They would be the eyes of something greater, and the war that followed would not just be for her. It would be for what she could become. The alien DNA changed him. Now he's the last hope. Jake woke up screaming. His body was on fire. But there were no flames. His blood felt like it was boiling. His skin itched from the inside. His heartbeat was too fast, too strong. He stumbled out of the tent, fell into the snow, and grabbed a handful to cool himself. It melted in seconds. Against his skin, behind him, the alien girl stood in silence. Her glowing blue eyes were calm. She had seen this before. 1 hour earlier, Jake had been normal, or so he thought. He had gone outside to gather broken pieces of the old Cums tower. Maybe he could fix it and call Earth. But when he tried to lift a frozen metal beam, it rose like paper. He stopped, stared at his hands. He tried it again with a larger beam. He didn't struggle. It was like gravity had changed only for him. He rushed back to the tent. "I need answers," he said, staring at the girl. She tilted her head and walked closer. Jake pointed to his hand. "You did something to me." She placed her fingers on his chest again. This time, he let her another vision. He saw 2 stars, one blue, one red, merging into one. Then he saw himself, standing tall with glowing veins and silver armor. Forming over his body like liquid, behind him stood armies. Alien, human, united. He pulled back, breathing hard. What am I turning into?" The girl pointed to the drawing on the tent wall, the one where the human stood between the monster and the girl. She tapped the human's chest. Then she tapped Jake's. "You," she said softly. "Now, in the snow." His arms stopped burning. His vision returned. His breath slowed. He stood, confused and afraid. The girl stepped out of the tent, holding a piece of blue crystal she had taken from her bag. She pointed toward the hills. The place where Jake had once found strange ruins, collapsed, bunker from long ago. She wanted him to go there. Jake looked at the dark clouds above. "They'll come again soon." The girl nodded. "But why there?" he asked. She touched her crystal to the snow. A blue map appeared, an old human base, buried under ice. A circle glowed deep inside it. Jake understood something slept down there, and it wanted him. The ruins were colder than the outside air. Silent, broken walls and metal bones of ancient machines. Jake walked ahead, the girl behind him. He felt the metal beneath his feet. It welcomed him, like it remembered him, nor remembered what he was becoming. They reached a large door, fade in the snow. Symbols carved into the wall, ancient human. Script mixed with alien marks. The girl placed her hand on the door. Nothing happened. Jake stepped forward. He touched the door too. It opened. The room inside glowed softly blue light from the walls, like veins under skin. In the center stood a tall machine, a capsule, open and empty. Jake walked toward it, could feel it humming. Alive, the girl whispered a word, "Awakener." He stepped into the machine. It scanned him, light running over. His skin, his veins glowed blue for a moment. His eyes flashed white. Then, something rose from the floor, a small cube. Inside, it floated a crystal with a flickering flame. The girl picked it up and handed it to him. Jake took it. The moment he did, melted into his chest like the stick before. Power surged through him. He saw everything ancient humans had once ruled. The stars, not just with ships, but with living technology. Machines that bonded to their bodies. They were warriors, peacekeepers, but they vanished long ago, betrayed by enemies. The girl's people, but she was different. She didn't want war. She wanted to bring them back, and Jake was the first. Back at the tent, Jake stood outside again, but now everything was different. He heard footsteps on the snow before they made sound. He could see heat signatures in the forest. Moving closer, he could smell the metal in the air. He turned to the girl. "They're here." She nodded, but Jake wasn't afraid. He picked up a broken pipe. It reshaped in his hand, metal bending like clay, turning into a blade with glowing edges. He didn't know how. But his body knew. The hunters came over the hill, dark armor, red eyes. Weapons raised, Jake stepped forward. Alone, the girl stayed behind him. Hands glowing, eyes watching. The hunters paused. They had never seen a human with blue veins before. Never seen one with her mark. Jake raised the blade. "I'm not just a guard anymore," he said. "I'm the warning you missed." Then he charged. The ground cracked beneath Jake's feet. Snow turned to steam. Air became sharp. And the sky, once dark and frozen now, pulsed with red lightning. The beast had come, and it was bigger than anything Jake had imagined. It didn't walk, it dragged itself forward like it had never known kindness. Its body was made of shadow and armor. Spikes covered its back. Chains dangled from its jaws, still glowing hot from the prison. It oblaust stick, ruby kiss. Ruby kiss, ruby kiss. Only ruby kiss. Only ruby kiss has the luxuries unlessed. When Libby kissed, sack it more. And ruby kiss, cyst stab. And had broken, its eyes were not red. They were empty, hollow, dead. The hunters stepped back as the creature passed. Through them, even they feared it. The girl stood behind Jake. Her hand trembled. She whispered only one word, "Unmaker." Jake's grip tightened on the blade he had forged from the ancient metal. It pulsed in his hand like it knew this fight wasn't just about survival. It was about truth. Years ago, when Earth first sent missions to distant planets, they didn't know other civilizations already watched them. Humans weren't supposed to return, not to this galaxy, not to this planet. But the girl had called Jake through time, through blood, through fear. And now, the Unmaker had followed. It wasn't here just to destroy her. It was here to destroy what she had awakened in him. The beast let out a roar that shook the mountain. Ice cracked. Birds fled. The trees bent as if bowing to something older than death. Jake didn't move. He couldn't. His legs felt locked, but not from fear. From memory, suddenly he saw it. Not the beast's, but his own face. Hundreds of years ago, standing tall. In armor. With other humans beside him, fighting this same monster. The Unmaker wasn't new. It had been beaten before. By him, Jake blinked. The memory vanished. But it left something behind. Courage. He stepped forward. The girl shouted something in her language. A warning. But Jake didn't stop. He couldn't let the past die again. The Unmaker roared and lunged. Its claws tore the snow. Its jaws opened wide rows of metallic teeth ready to rip Jake in half. Jake ran toward it. Blade raised at the last second. He slid under the beast's legs and slashed upward. The blade cut deep into its belly. The creature shrieked, black steam. Pouring from the wound, Jake rolled away as a massive tail smashed. Down where he had been, the ice exploded. He landed hard but stood quickly. The hunters watched from a distance. They didn't help. This was not their battle. This was between the past and the future. The beast turned. Its eyes now glowing with rage. It charged again this time faster. Jake raised the blade to block, but the impact was too strong. He flew backward, hit a rock and groaned in pain. His ribs cracked. Blood touched the snow. The girl ran to him, hands glowing blue. She touched his chest and the pain faded. His ribs healed in seconds. Jake stood again. "I'm not done," he whispered. The beast roared. Jake charged again, but not with anger. This time, with focus. He remembered the vision. He remembered the ancient move. He ran to the side, waited for the tail end, then jumped high, too. High for a normal human. He landed on the beast's back. It screamed and twisted. But Jake stabbed deep into the base of its neck. The blade sank until it hit bone. Then it glowed. Pulse of energy surged into the beast's body. It stopped moving, shaking, growling, until finally collapsed. Silence, even the wind had stopped. The hunters lowered their weapons. Jake stood atop the beast's body, breathing hard, blood running down his arm. He looked at the girl. She smiled for the first time. Jake walked back, his legs shaking. The girl helped him sit. She touched his face gently, then placed her forehead against his. A soft blue light surrounded them, and in that light, Jake saw the truth. The Unmaker had been built, not born, built by a council of alien kings who feared a human's return. It was their final weapon, and now it was gone. He had broken history. That night, the girl drew again. Not a beast, not a throne, but two stars together, rising above a world with no war. Jake stared at the drawing. He understood they weren't finished. This was only the beginning. The hunters were just soldiers. The real threat was still watching from the stars, and it knew Jake's name now. The sky above the planet cracked open. A deep hum vibrated through the mountains. Clouds split like paper as a black triangle-shaped ship slowly descended, silent. Massive and ancient looking dot. Jake looked up from the ruins where the Unmaker's body still smoked. The girl was already standing. She didn't blink. She didn't run. She knew what was coming. Jake stepped beside her. "That ship, it's not like the others." The girl nodded. "They're not just hunters anymore, are they?" She looked at him. "No," she whispered. "They're kings." Minutes earlier, Jake had been resting. His muscles ached. His mind felt full of fog, but his hands still glowed with soft blue lines like energy beneath his skin. The battle with the Unmaker had changed him forever. But something else had changed too. The girl, her skin shimmered faintly now, like she had absorbed the light from the fight. Her hair had small glowing strands. Her eyes no longer just glowed blue, they shifted between colors. Like distant galaxies, she looked less like a lost traveler, and more like a Kwai. When waking up, the alien ship landed near the frozen lake. It didn't open, not yet. Instead, a message echoed in the air, a sound wave that hit Jake's chest like thunder. Then a voice. spoke cold, deep. Final, you've broken the ancient law. You've awakened the hybrid. Step away, human. We will take her. The girl's face turned pale. She grabbed Jake's arm tightly. He looked at her. Hybrid. She nodded, then pointed at herself and then at him. Then she said it slowly in English. Together, we become. Jake remembered the visions, the ancient memories, the throne, the wars, the lost power of Earth's people. She wasn't just becoming a queen, she was becoming something new. A bridge, a fusion, a living answer to a question the galaxy had been afraid to ask. What if human strength and alien intelligence were combined? What if war ended not through force, but evolution? The ship doors opened. 6 tall figures stepped out, royal guards in dark robes and silver helmets. Behind them, a floating platform carried a man with glowing red eyes and skin like black glass. He looked at Jake like he was an insect. You were warned. The hybrid must be taken. Her power will destroy the order. Jake raised his glowing blade. Maybe the order needs to be destroyed. The man's voice sharpened. You don't understand what she is. Jake didn't move. I don't have to, he said. I trust her. The girl stepped forward. She held her hands open. From her palms, small sparks of light floated upward, tiny stars forming between her fingers. The guards stepped back. Even the floating man tensed. She's not a weapon, Jake said. She's a choice. The girl looked at him, her voice gentle. They fear what I will become. Jake nodded. But I don't. Suddenly, her body began to rise, not walking, not floating, but pulled by something inside her. Winds blew outward from her feet. Her voice echoed. No longer small. You kept me in cages, chained me in your towers, hunted me across the stars. But I am no longer yours. She turned to Jake. I am ours. The sky above cracked again. A second ship appeared, this one smaller, sleeker. It didn't belong to the kings, it was hers. Or rather, theirs, built from the ruins below the snow. A voice called out from the ship in English. Commander Jake, Queen Syria. The Ark is ready. Jake blinked. Wait, what? The girl Syria smiled. I sent the signal when you touched the crystal. It woke up the others. Jake looked at her in disbelief. There are more. She nodded. Hybrids. Sleeping. Waiting. Hidden in bloodlines, in old ruins, in forgotten DNA. You were the first. The guards drew weapons. The floating man screamed. Stop them. Jake stepped in front of Syria, glowing blade raised. I'm not stopping, he said. I'm starting something. A single step forward, and the ground beneath the guards lit up. Traps. Ancient defense tech. Buried deep. Activated by his presence. Blue spikes of energy shot upward, knocking the guards down. The floating man flew back, eyes wide with fear. You don't understand what you're doing. He roared. Jake didn't answer. He walked with Syria toward the waiting ship together. Inside the ship, Syria touched the wall. It came alive, responded to her instantly. Jake placed his hand on the control panel. It accepted him too. 2 lights glowed on the ship's core, one blue, one silver dot. They had become something the kings feared more than war. Hope, as the ship rose into the sky. Syria looked down at the frozen world, the broken guards, the dead unmaker. Why did they hate me? She asked. Jake looked at her. They didn't hate you, he said softly. They feared what you'd become. And they were right. 2. The stars moved, not because the galaxy shifted, but because the Ark ship cut across space faster than light, faster than time. Inside, Jake stood at the window, looking out at a sky he never thought he'd see. The stars weren't just dots anymore. They were destinations behind him. Syria floated above the command deck, her body glowing like a star reborn. Her hair flowed without wind. Her voice echoed like music in a language older than war. But when she spoke to Jake, it was simple, soft, human. "We are not running. We are going home." Jake turned to her. "Where is home now?" She smiled and pointed to her heart. "Where you are." Hours earlier, the Ark had escaped the frozen planet. The alien kings tried to follow, but the ancient technology, Syria, awakened, closed the space behind them like a locked door. Now, they were alone. But not for long. Syria opened a map not made of light, but of living energy. It pulsed and shifted. She placed Jake's hand on it. It responded instantly. Hundreds of small blue sparks lit up across the galaxy. Jake stared. "What are those?" Syria answered. "Hybrids, like us, sleeping, hidden, waiting to be awakened." Jake's heart pounded. "You're saying I'm not the only one?" Syria nodded. "You are the first, but not the last." The ship guided itself toward a glowing planet. It looked abandoned, quiet, but Jake could feel something pulling him toward it. When they landed, Syria led him to a dark mountain, where ancient stone doors stood sealed. They placed their hands together on the surface. The mountain opened. Inside, hundreds of small capsules glowed with a faint blue light. Each held a sleeping being, part human, part alien. Each one was waiting. Syria touched a panel. The energy shifted. One by one, the capsules began to pulse with life. Jake stepped back, stunned. "These are soldiers." Syria shook her head. "No, these are bridges. Born to end war, not make more." Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber. It came from above, from a hologram of one of the alien kings. Angry, furious. "You cannot spread your seed. We will erase you before you awaken the others." Jake stepped forward. "You tried that already. Didn't work." "You're a mistake," the voice hissed. "She was never meant to choose you." Jake stared straight at the hologram. "Did?" Then he looked at Syria, and her hand reached out for his. In that moment, everything changed. The capsules opened, not with noise, but with peace. Each being inside opened their eyes. Some looked human, some not. But all of them turned toward Jake and Syria and bowed. Jake felt heat rise in his chest. "I'm not a king," he whispered. Syria looked at him gently. "No, you are something rarer." She leaned closer and whispered, "You are the first to believe in what could be when others only feared what was." Back in space, the alien kings prepared their armies. Hundreds of warships gathered near the core systems. They thought Jake and Syria would attack. They thought the hybrids were weapons, but instead, Syria sent a message. A single image, Jake holding her hand, standing between war and peace. Her smile, his courage, across the galaxy. People who had only known fear stopped. Some lowered their weapons. Others stepped out of hiding. Old machines turned on. Ruins lit up again. Something new was being born. Not a war, not an empire. A new kind of unity, back on the mountain. Jake and Syria stood side by side as the sun rose over the horizon. He looked at her and asked, "What now?" Syria raised her hand toward the sky. "Now," she said, "we wake the galaxy." Jake nodded slowly. "With fire." She smiled. "No, with light." A week later, the kings held one final meeting. One of the men, old warrior with cracked armors, spoke with trembling words. "We tried to kill her. We tried to silence the human, but now their names are written in the stars." Another whispered, "She chose the human." A silence followed. Then a whisper spread across their network, and the galaxy will never be the same. Epilogue. In time, stories would be told of a man who touched a fallen girl in the snow. Not with power, not with fear, but with kindness. He didn't lift a sword to take over planets. He lifted a heart. And because of that, worlds that had never spoken finally spoke. Enemies that had never stopped fighting finally laid down their arms. And all because she chose him. And he chose her right back.